I want you to just close your eyes for a second and try to picture this. You are standing in the dry woodlands of northern Tanzania.
Right.
There are no alarm clocks, no phone notifications buzzing in your pocket. The only thing waking you up is the sound of the wind moving through these massive thorny acacia trees. You can feel the cracked, dry earth under your bare feet. And then, cutting right through the silence of the dawn, you hear this distant, thunderous roar.
Oh, wow.
It's the sound of an apex predator, and it's literally vibrating right through your chest.
And that sound is, that is the ultimate reality check. It's this chilling morning declaration that on this land, humans are definitely not the only creatures born with the instinct to hunt.
No, definitely not.
In our modern world, we kind of forget that for most of human history, we were just another participant in a very dangerous food chain.
Exactly. And that is exactly why we're here today. Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to step way out of our comfortable climate-controlled lives and really explore the raw, unforgiving African savanna.
Yeah, we're going deep into this one.
We are. We're looking at this environment through the lens of some absolutely stunning documentary footage captured by Tribal Earth Travel. But we aren't just doing a polite anthropological overview here.
Right.
We are examining humans operating as apex predators. Specifically, we're diving into the lives of the Hadzabe hunter-gatherers and the Maasai nomadic warriors, and really analyzing how they face down nature's most lethal forces, armed with, just ancient wisdom, deep ecological knowledge, and absolute willpower.
And for you listening, understanding this goes far beyond just basic survival tactics.
Yeah.
We live in a world of padded comforts,
Yeah.
Supermarkets, digital walls, instant food delivery.
Everything's so easy.
Exactly. But these tribes hold the blueprint for true primal instinct. They possess this psychological resilience that we have largely engineered out of our modern routines. Understanding them gives us a window into the core biological and psychological mechanisms of what actually makes us human.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to examine how these tribes face off against giant man-eating predators, we first need to understand how they survive just like a standard Tuesday.
Right, the baseline.
Yeah, the baseline.
Yeah.
How do you blend into a brutal environment just to secure your next meal?
Well, for the Hadzabe, everyday hunting is basically an unbroken dialogue with nature. It requires erasing their human footprint entirely.
Which is so hard to even imagine.
It is. They don't just walk on the land. They move in perfect sync with its natural rhythms.
I was watching the footage of them hunting porcupines and baboons, and it literally feels like a masterclass in tactical infiltration.
Oh, totally.
Like one snapped twig or one misplaced step means the mission fails and the whole family goes hungry. The hunters literally check the wind direction by just feeling the air on their bare skin.
Yeah, they have to constantly stay downwind because the moment a prey animal catches the scent of a human, the hunt is over. It's done.
And they operate in total silence. All their communication happens through these microscopic gestures, a subtle shift of the eyes, a tiny nod, or just like a shift in body weight.
What's fascinating here is the sensory processing at play. When they mute their voices, all their other senses just amplify.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so every track in the dirt, every single broken blade of grass is a data point. And their weaponry is an extension of that deep environmental integration.
Because they're not using anything modern, right?
Exactly. No firearms, no modern synthetic traps. They are using bows strung with actual animal sinew, and they straighten their arrow shafts using nothing but the leverage of their teeth.
Man, that brings us to their primary offensive tool, which is just wild. The arrows are tipped with this dark, thick paste extracted from the sap of the euphorbia plant.
Right.
It's a completely natural substance, but it acts as a devastatingly potent poison.
The mechanism behind that euphorbia sap is incredibly sophisticated. It isn't just like a mild irritant.
Right, it's way more intense.
Yeah, the sap contains these highly toxic terpenes. When that gets introduced into the bloodstream of an animal, it acts as a severe cardiotoxin.
Wait, so it actually attacks the heart?
Exactly. It rapidly disrupts the electrical signaling in the animal's heart muscle, leading to sudden cardiac arrest and respiratory failure.
That is terrifying.
It is. The Hadzabe have essentially harnessed a complex biochemical weapon from the flora right around them. It allows them to take down game much larger than themselves without needing the brute force of, say, a high-velocity rifle.
That level of environmental mastery is staggering. But there's another everyday activity that completely redefines the concept of pain tolerance.
Oh, the honey harvest.
Yes, the wild honey harvest. So the hunters locate a beehive way up high in a massive tree. And a Hadzabe man climbs this tree without a single piece of protective gear.
It's unbelievable to watch.
Like no mesh suit, no thick gloves, not even smoke to calm the bees down. He is just climbing barehanded into an active swarm.
And of course, the bees immediately register him as a threat and just attack. The footage captures the sound of the swarm, and it's literally a storm of insects.
And they are stinging him relentlessly, like hundreds of stings across his face, his arms, his torso. Yet his heart rate doesn't even seem to spike.
He stays completely calm.
Yeah, he doesn't panic or wildly swat at them. He just methodically extracts the honey as if the pain is completely irrelevant. How does he do that?
Well, it really comes down to a harsh calculus of survival. You see, wild honey is one of the most calorie-dense foods available out there on the savanna.
It's just pure energy.
Pure energy. So in an environment where every single calorie expended must be justified by the calories gained, the intense physical pain of hundreds of bee stings is, honestly, simply the cost of doing business.
Wow.
Yeah. The Hadzabe don't waste precious energy fighting the pain. They endure it with total stoicism because that sweet, fat-rich reward will sustain the entire community for days. It is a profound acceptance of their reality.
It's a highly calculated sacrifice. But, you know, it is one thing to silently stalk a baboon or tolerate bee stings to gather calories. The entire dynamic shifts when the tables turn. What happens when the Hadzabe are suddenly the ones being challenged by the undisputed king of the savannah?
That scenario completely blurs the line between hunter and hunted.
Yeah, let's set the scene for a second. It's midday. The heat is just shimmering off the dry grass. The Hadzabe have just brought down a large antelope. The kill is secured on the ground, and they're preparing to butcher it.
And then things get tense.
Very tense.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the thick brush parts, and a massive male lion steps out. The lion has obviously followed the scent of the fresh blood. He wants that antelope, and he lets out this deep, commanding growl to basically claim it.
Lions are highly opportunistic. They frequently scavenge and steal hard-earned kills from other predators, and that includes humans.
So they just walk up and take it.
Pretty much. The lion understands that the Hadzabe did the exhausting work of the hunt, and it is stepping in to leverage its immense size and power to just take the prize.
Now, in that moment, the biological instinct for any human would be to instantly trigger the flight response. Running away seems like the only logical option.
Absolutely.
But the Hadzabe hold their ground. In fact, running is the absolute worst thing you can do, right?
Exactly.
Because turning your back and fleeing instantly triggers a feline's predatory chase reflex.
Exactly. You run, you become prey.
Instead, the footage shows two young hunters smoothly drawing their bows, pulling the sinew taut with those poisoned arrows. And the eldest hunter slowly steps forward, holding a simple wooden spear, and he locks eyes directly with the lion.
It becomes a pure clash of psychological dominance. The hunters begin using controlled bursts of fire and loud percussive shouts. They are purposefully trying to overload the lion's sensory processing.
Showing absolutely no fear.
Right, showing no fear and actively expanding their physical presence.
Then we reach this decisive moment. The lion lowers its head, looking like it's about to charge. And one of the hunters fires a poisoned arrow. But wait, and this is what really struck me. Why not just kill the lion?
That's the big question.
Because they have that deadly euphorbia poison that causes cardiac arrest. Why risk taking a non-fatal shot on a 400-pound beast that could easily tear the hunting party to pieces if the poison doesn't act fast enough?
It does seem totally counterintuitive to leave a massive threat alive, but this is exactly where their deep ecological intelligence really shines. The arrow was intentionally aimed at a non-fatal spot.
Like where?
Usually the thick muscle of the hindquarters. The goal wasn't to kill, it was to inflict enough immediate sharp pain to break the lion's focus and warn it off.
So the arrow is essentially just a boundary marker.
Precisely. The Hadzabe recognize that they live within a delicate ecosystem. You do not needlessly eliminate an apex predator.
Because that messes everything up.
Exactly. Lions play a critical role in controlling herbivore populations and culling sick animals. If you kill the lion, you disrupt the very food web you rely on for your own survival. That non-fatal shot is about asserting their place in the hierarchy.
Letting the lion know they aren't pushovers.
Yes, it proves to the lion that humans are formidable, that taking this meal will just cost too much blood and pain to acquire.
And the crazy thing is, the strategy works. The lion registers the pain, realizes the risk definitely outweighs the reward, growls in frustration, and just retreats into the tall grass.
It's incredible.
The restraint is what's remarkable. They protected their sustenance and their lives without needlessly destroying a keystone species.
They aren't trying to conquer the savanna, they are enforcing their right to exist within it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Defending a kill against a lion is, a defensive reaction. But occasionally the Hadzabe shift from defense to active offense, and they hunt one of the most mysterious and cold-blooded predators on the continent.
Oh, the African rock python.
Yes, the African rock python.
Which presents a totally different mechanical threat compared to a lion. I mean, a lion uses explosive kinetic energy and speed. A python, on the other hand, relies on silent, creeping, bone-crushing pressure.
These snakes can grow over 15 feet long.
Yeah.
And their method of killing constriction isn't just about breaking bones like people think.
Right, it's way more lethal.
The immense pressure actually cuts off blood flow, causing rapid cardiac arrest in their prey. They are the absolute top of the food chain in their specific microenvironment. And the Hadzabe's preparation for this hunt is highly specialized.
Very specialized.
They gather specific dry branches and create this thick, localized smoke to basically flush the massive snake out of its rocky underground crevice.
And, the smoke isn't just to annoy the snake. It serves a very specific biological purpose.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Snakes rely heavily on their Jacobson's organ. It's this cluster of sensory cells on the roof of their mouth that detects chemical pheromones in the air when they flick their tongues. The thick smoke completely overloads and jams this sensory organ, effectively blinding the snake's primary method of tracking. Disoriented, the python is basically forced to abandon its den.
Once the snake emerges, the confrontation requires incredible precision. I was watching this unfold, and it honestly looks like a high-stakes martial arts match.
It really does.
You have one hunter using a long, forked stick, but he's not hitting the snake. He's gently diverting its head, controlling its strike zone, and redirecting its forward momentum.
Yeah, carefully guiding it.
Meanwhile, the other hunters are firing precision arrows, and they have to apply just enough pressure to subdue the reptile, because if they miscalculate and provoke it too aggressively, the python could launch this thrashing, muscular counterattack that could wrap a hunter up in seconds.
It is an absolute mastery of leverage and timing. They are managing the snake's kinetic energy rather than trying to fight its raw strength. Decades of generational knowledge are distilled into just a few terrifying, high-tension seconds.
And the nutritional payoff is huge. Once the python is secured, they carefully remove the skin and roast the meat over glowing charcoal. But the real prize is the thick python fat.
Oh, yeah.
It's this dense, savory energy source that is immediately shared equally among the entire hunting party.
When we look at that moment of consumption, it really highlights a stark contrast with our modern food systems.
In what way?
Well, today the meat we eat is sanitized. It's neatly shrink-wrapped in plastic and completely divorced from its origin. There is no risk involved in acquiring it, and often a total disconnect from the animal itself.
That's so true.
But for the Hadzabe, the reality of sustaining life is raw and immediate. When they consume that python, they are acutely aware of the mortal danger they just faced and the actual life that was taken to fuel their own.
It's food in its most honest, transparent form. Now, up to this point, we've focused on the Hadzabe, a society that survives through ultimate stealth.
Right.
They survive by basically erasing their presence. But you cannot erase a massive herd of cattle. This limitation forces our second group, the Maasai nomadic warriors, to adopt the exact opposite survival strategy.
Hypervisibility.
Exactly, hypervisibility.
The Maasai represent a completely different paradigm. If the Hadzabe are the ghosts of the savannah, the Maasai are the highly visible guardians. They do not hide from the harsh elements or the prowling predators. They stand out and confront them directly.
Their day begins way before dawn, around 6 a.m. They live in these traditional manyatta houses, which are incredible structures engineered from a mixture of clay, branches, and cow dung.
Which sounds crazy to us, but it actually acts as an excellent thermal insulator against the intense daytime heat and the freezing cold nights.
Nature's insulation. And breakfast is practical. Steaming corn porridge, fresh cow's milk, and a special danji tamarind porridge.
That tamarind porridge actually serves a vital biological function. The danji, or deeply sour flavor, comes from a high concentration of tartaric acid and vitamin C.
Oh, so it's not just for taste.
No, in an environment where the heat can cause rapid dehydration, this fermented porridge replenishes crucial electrolytes and keeps their energy levels stable. And they really need that energy because their entire existence revolves around one asset.
They're cattle.
They're cattle.
For the Maasai, cattle are not just livestock, they are the central pillar of their entire economy. Cattle represent wealth, dowry, social status, and really the very soul of their culture.
Yeah.
And they specifically breed boring cattle, which are uniquely adapted to this brutal environment.
The boring cattle are just biological marvels of resilience. They possess these large, loose folds of skin under their necks called dewlaps, which function almost like natural radiators. It increases their surface area to dissipate heat.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and their humps store specialized fat and water reserves, and they have a highly efficient digestive system that can extract nutrients from the driest, poorest quality scrub brush. They can survive for days with minimal water, basically lowering their metabolic rate to endure severe droughts.
Okay, so imagine taking your entire life savings, your home security system, and your family's legacy, putting it all on 4 legs, and walking it through predator-infested tall grass every single day.
The stress of that is unimaginable.
The pressure to protect that investment is immense. And that immense responsibility falls on the shoulders of the Moran, the young Maasai warriors.
Right.
The Morans do not wear camouflage. They wear these iconic bright red shuka cloaks. They want to be seen.
Right.
Lions are actually dichromatic, meaning they are essentially colorblind to red, but that bright red fabric creates a stark, dark contrast against the yellow grass.
So they stick out like a sore thumb.
Exactly. To a predator, a group of tall men in dark contrasting colors, holding long spears, presents a very clear, intimidating boundary. The Moran patrol the plains constantly, reading the subtle disturbances in the grass and listening to the alarm calls of birds and monkeys to track the movements of hyenas and lions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the broader strategy of survival, the Maasai utilize a system of tactical nomadic migration.
Because they have to keep moving.
Right. During the dry season, when the water holes evaporate and the grass dies, they don't just hunker down and hope for rain, they mobilize. They drive their herds for hundreds of kilometers, following the moisture. It is a highly calculated rotation that prevents overgrazing and ensures that human and animal endurance outlasts the unforgiving climate.
And that constant state of vigilance extends deep into the night, because when the sun goes down, the danger multiplies. To prepare for the dark, the young men gather for the Hadzabe, the traditional jumping dance.
Right, the jumping.
They form a circle, and one by one, they leap straight vertically into the air, keeping their posture perfectly straight.
And, the Hadzabe is often viewed by outsiders as just a cultural performance, but biologically, it is a classic display of physical fitness.
It's signaling.
Exactly. In the animal kingdom, this is similar to stotting, like when an antelope leaps high into the air to signal to a predator, "Hey, look how much energy I have. Do not even bother trying to chase me." The Maasai warriors are signaling to the watching predators in the dark and to each other that their kinetic energy and strength are at their absolute peak.
And they need every ounce of that energy because the night watch is grueling. The men surround the thorn branch enclosures that hold the cattle. They stay awake through the absolute pitch black, listening to the mysterious silence, just waiting for the crack of a branch that signals a lion testing the perimeter. It is a lifelong, relentless vigil.
Which brings us to the deepest, most complex part of this whole exploration. We've analyzed the mechanics of how the Hadzabe physically survive encounters with lions and pythons, and how the Maasai strategically migrate and protect their wealth. But the real question is, what is the psychological engine driving this?
Yeah, how do they not just collapse?
Right, how do these individuals avoid breaking down from the chronic, unrelenting stress of baseline survival?
So what does this constant pressure actually do to their minds? Let's look closely at the Hadzabe for a second. They operate under a system that anthropologists call an immediate return society.
Meaning no storage.
Absolutely zero food storage.
Okay.
They don't salt or smoke meat for the dry season. They don't have grain silos. Whatever they hunt or forage today, they consume today. They live 100% in the present moment.
For a modern mind, living without a safety net is just a terrifying concept.
It really is.
We are a delayed return society. We insure our cars, we lock our doors, we plan our retirement portfolios decades in advance. We spend our entire lives hoarding resources to protect against future uncertainties.
But because the Hadzabe do not store food, they rely on a strict code of communal sharing. When those hunters bring back a baboon or a massive python, nobody eats alone.
Everyone gets a share.
Yes, there is no distinction between the best cuts of meat for the leadership and the worst portions for everyone else. There are no wealthy Hadzabe and poor Hadzabe. Every single calorie is distributed equally.
This raises an important question about the root causes of modern anxiety. Because every resource is immediately shared, the fear of individual loss completely evaporates.
Wow.
The anxiety of scarcity, the fear that you won't have enough while your neighbor has too much, which drives so much of modern human behavior and stress, it simply does not exist in their cultural framework. If the tribe succeeds, you eat. If they fail, you all go hungry together. The psychological burden is perfectly distributed.
It is the most incredible irony. Think about our society. We read mountains of self-help books, download mindfulness apps, and spend thousands of dollars on silent meditation retreats just to figure out how to be present.
Right, chasing mindfulness.
We desperately want to live in the here and now. Meanwhile, the Hadzabe achieved total, absolute mindfulness, not through meditation, but through their daily, terrifying, beautiful struggle to survive.
We look at their lack of technology, their lack of permanent architecture, and our immediate instinct is to label it as poverty. But from their perspective, it is ultimate simplicity.
It's freedom.
Exactly. Their definition of wealth isn't the accumulation of goods. It is the freedom from unnecessary burdens. Without the weight of a mortgage, the stress of a fluctuating bank account, or the distraction of a glowing screen, they can direct 100% of their cognitive energy toward what actually matters: their community, sharpening their physical instincts, and maintaining a balanced harmony with the ecosystem.
Comfort does not automatically generate happiness. We are arguably the most comfortable generation in human history, yet we are plagued by unprecedented levels of anxiety and isolation. The Hadzabe face down man-eating lions in the afternoon, yet they laugh around the fire every single night with a profound, unshakable sense of peace.
That peace comes from the fact that they haven't separated themselves from the human experience. They are still active, vital participants in the biological cycle of life. We, on the other hand, have constructed massive artificial environments to observe nature from a safe, sterile distance.
Man, it has been a wildly intense journey today. We've explored the biochemical mechanics of poisoned arrows, the tactical deflection of bone-crushing pythons, and the sheer sensory overload of a standoff with a 400-pound lion. We've tracked the biological resilience of boring cattle and stood the tense night watch with Maasai warriors under a sea of stars.
It's an exploration that really completely redefines our baseline understanding of strength, endurance, and what it actually means to be wealthy.
Now, to be clear, we're not suggesting you need to go out tomorrow, sell your refrigerator, and try to wrestle a python.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. But we can absolutely adopt fragments of this tribal mindset. We can consciously choose to slow down. We can pay closer attention to the physical environments we move through. And most importantly, we can find a little more joy and security in our shared communities, rather than exhausting ourselves by endlessly stockpiling resources just for ourselves.
It leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. We spend our entire lives building physical and digital walls to keep the wild out, engineering our lives to ensure we never have to face a predator or feel the sharp sting of the elements. But in doing so, we really have to ask ourselves, when we completely eliminate the daily struggle for physical survival, do we also accidentally extinguish the fiercest, most vital part of what makes us human?
Think about the mechanics of that the next time you hear the wind blowing through the trees outside your window. Until next time, stay curious.